Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Rosen, CRO of Intersection and co-chair of the OAAA's Video Committee. Today's panel discussion involves a topic that I'm extremely passionate about and that presents a major opportunity for marketers and their agencies to reach their target audiences at scale: video out of home. Video out of home refers to IP addressable digital displays that are placed outside the home at various consumer touchpoints and comprises custom curated contextually relevant content. So much of our industry's focus and attention of late has been on linear, OTT, and/or digital video, while video out of home is literally right in front of us in public and private spaces across every single DMA in the US. Earlier this week, the OAAA released its first ever digital video out of home buyer's guide. This comprehensive guide is a blueprint for marketers and agencies on how to tap into out-of-home screens to reach the same coveted audiences and achieve the same business outcomes as other channels. You can access the guide via the link in this chat or on the OAAA's website. The stakes are high for the video ecosystem, as Magna projects US digital video spend will grow 12% in 2021 versus smaller growth in national broadcast and declines in local TV. And the recently released IAB Video Ad Spend Outlook, conducted by Advertiser Perceptions, predicts that 56% of video budgets will be allocated to digital in 2021 versus traditional TV. The Outlook's respondents also mentioned the importance of first-party data, programmatic activation, attribution, and efficient pricing as critical to their buying decisions. Video out of home can deliver all of these and much, much more to the marketplace in the same way that other media channels can. Marketers can no longer afford to overlook video out of home simply because it hasn't fit with how other video traditionally has been bought, or because some video out of home isn't sound enabled, or because the content created isn't long-form episodic programming. Instead, marketers and agencies should focus on many of the topics that myself, Mike Law, Tal Chuslayan, and Sean McCaffrey will discuss today, including how video out of home reaches mass audiences at local and national levels, how video out of home comes with no brand safety, fraud, or viewability issues, how video out of home reaches consumers on their active daily journeys between home, work, shopping, and entertainment, where they are forming opinions, making decisions, and buying products. How video out of home can measure the exact same KPIs that other video channels measure, including in-store visitation, online purchases, or app downloads. And lastly, how video out of home programmatic integrations with leading omnichannel DSPs allow for your current video campaigns to reach out of home screens with the same automation and workflows as all other programming channels. Okay, so you can see that I'm a little pumped about this topic. I've seen firsthand how massive the opportunity is personally through Intersection's Link NYC kiosks on the streets of New York City and across our other video-enabled screens in major markets, including Philadelphia, Chicago, and Los Angeles. But just don't take my word for it. Let's hear from our all-star experts who bring their agency, technology, and media owner perspectives to this important topic. All right, so with that setup, how can video out of home be a strong alternative or complement to OTT, digital video, and/or linear TV buys? Sean, you want to kick us off?
Sure, Michael, thanks for the great setup. So before we talk about media, it's probably worthwhile to take a step back to marketing and business challenges. By that, I mean, what matters to brands and agencies these days? So much has changed, but I think what matters is still the same. At least that's what we hear from our partners. We want to be right place, right time, right moment. That holy grail, if you will, is just as sacred as ever. So I think with video out of home, if we're going to do a little myth busting today, I mean, we could admit that video and out of home haven't often collided in the same sentence prior to this. But speaking for my network, yours, and I know some others, they have most of what marketers say they need today to be right place, right time, right moment. By that, I mean broadcast type scale, true national scale, some level of digital addressability and measurement, that kind of muscle memory that grew up in classic digital and now folks want to apply everywhere else. And then the real world, if you will, opportunity of mobile and out of home that people have always liked, right? Consumers are out living their lives, spending money, enjoying experiences, which perhaps we're going to witness the biggest snapback ever in terms of getting outside the home and enjoying experiences. So in that sense, I think marketers have a real opportunity to reconsider what is video in the out-of-home channel. It's not the legacy 100-year definition of static signage or large format locations, which are great for their use case and still are, but contextual audience targeting and the way you think about video everywhere else around content in places and spaces where people are living their lives. You've got real GRPs, reach, impressions, whatever sort of channel you're buying it from, so to speak, that it could be a true complement. I had one of Mike's prior colleagues tell me a couple years ago when we were chatting about my platform that if they did a blind taste test inside the agency, we'd have a lot of what people wanted, right, in the scale, targeting, and measurement. But our challenge was, number one, we weren't well known inside the agency. And number two, agencies have to think about these more omni-channel partners that don't fit a classic channel, but they're better and better every day at doing that. Radio became audio, television became video. So agencies and brands are keeping pace. And I for one, think there's a lot of innovation hiding in plain sight here, if you will.
Gotcha. How about Mike, any perspective from you?
A lot of perspective. I'm just excited to be here. I think that this is a really important conversation, and what we've said from the beginning is that we want our buyers and our teams to be able to buy wherever the next best impression is and try to take down some of the silos that we as an industry create around these channels. And much, I'll borrow a line I've been using for the past few months about TV, like, we should buy TV like we watch TV, and we should buy media like we consume media. We have to put it through the lens of the consumer. And there are some amazing video experiences that are happening outside of the way we would traditionally define it as sitting on a couch in a living room. And I think that if as brands think about creating great consumer engagement or improving a consumer experience, there's some opportunities in different spaces, and video has brought that to life. And of course, the use of creative and technology to make sure that we tell the story correctly is important. But I do think from the buying side, we need to take advantage of this fragmented landscape and the out-of-home space, the screens that are presenting themselves, the time spent in front of those screens. I mean, I think Sean's right about the blind taste test. If you could say to me, somebody's going to stand in front of a screen fully engaged for, sorry, I don't know the stat, Sean, 2.5, 3 minutes a couple times a week, that's a pretty powerful experience. And there's a lot of action that could be taken off that. So from our perspective, we think that the growing footprint in this space is reason for us to make sure that our teams are enabled and equipped to be able to take advantage of it.
So Mike, when you think about kind of the next best impression, and you mentioned obviously kind of the buying silos. So just any perspective, not necessarily just from Dentsu, but and Amplify, but overall, what a best approach is for agencies to kind of look beyond the silos. And you had mentioned a couple of those things, but maybe to reiterate some of them.
Well, I think the first thing to do is just start with the consumer and think about the experience that they're going through in their day-to-day life. We have a great, we do a great job as an industry of creating lots of silos, of creating specialties and expertise, and those things are needed to really understand a space. But at the same time, I think that we shouldn't see them as things to slow us down in what we want to do. And I think you're seeing the industry change over time to bring that to life. Tal and I probably 10 years ago started just having this conversation about digital video. And it does take time, but ultimately, I think if I go back to the beginning and just say, start with the consumer, think about how they move through every single day and where you can connect with them, and make sure you're connecting with them in an authentic way and one that's appropriate for the environment. It will create a great media platform. I know many times I walked from Penn Station to the office over the past 20 years, and you'd see a creative new use of outdoor and say, geez, I never thought of that. What an amazing way to connect with me, right? And I just think that those are popping up more and more. And as buyers and agencies, we have to take advantage of that.
Great. And Tal, thanks, Mike. So, and Tal, from Innovid and your point of view, kind of being on the forefront of video and digital video, what have we learned from the past when it comes to looking at, kind of this holistic and omni-channel buy that can make video out of home scalable? And I think you bring a lot of wealth of experience in other channels, and kind of what points of view do you have on that?
Thank you. A few things. First of all, everyone knows, many people know Innovid, as Mike said. Thank you for the layup. But many people know Innovid as the digital video, ad serving, and technology company for the buy side. Clearly, our mission is to solve operational inefficiency, if you will, and allow marketers or agencies to battle fragmentation, or also make fragmentation your friend, and be able to buy, as Mike, I love your quote about buy like people watch. That's exactly our mission. And you asked about what are the biggest thing we can learn. Is the beautiful part is that almost every new channel or new outlet of video try to reinvent something. Again, Snapchat started vertical video, and there's no sound in some of the video properties, and then the ability to skip ads and all of those things, that even though it's a video ad, which you can think of as kind of television, but it's clearly not. And then the downside is that it's hard to buy at scale, and definitely hard to measure apples to apples. So our job is to create exactly that, is to allow you to benefit from the different capability that are platform specific, but then at the same time be able to buy at scale and kind of upload once and deploy everywhere in kind of simplistic way. So what are the things to learn is we need to make sure that digital out of home space will be fully plugged, technically plugged. I mean, fully plugged into the plumbing of digital buying, delivery, measurement, reconciliation, and asset management. All of those things needs to be fully connected, because that's the real recipe for scale. We hear so many marketers are saying, yeah, I love that, this is amazing, but if I'm buying media from 120 different media owners, it's impossible to, even if I love the next one, it's really, really hard, and I'm paying more in operational than the value that I'm getting back. So being further connected in so many ways, again, this is not just delivery of the assets, but data connection, measurement, reach measurement, attribution, so many things. It's clearly easier said than done, but this is the real value.
Great, thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, out-of-home media companies who have video out-of-home offerings have also become content programmers and creators. And so while video out-of-home content isn't about the 30-minute episodic content, it does drive to, I think, to Mike, to your point, high engagement that aligns with users' behaviors and specific contextual environments. So when I think of, kind of from my perspective, for example, in New York City on linked content, it's programmed to deliver context and utility for people out and about, whether it's art installations, fun facts, local neighborhood information, health tips, sports facts. And speaking of engagement, a recent Intersection survey of consumers reported that over 80% of respondents said Link NYC content is useful to them. And of that, of those people who actually consume it, 82% slow down, right, and read it, kind of, Mike, to your example, in terms of Sean's assets. And then 60% have discussed the information they've seen on those screens. So, I'd say that's pretty high engagement. Sean, from your perspective, how important is content engagement, knowing it's obviously very important, but what's your point of view on, that as an adoption to video out of home?
It's a great lead, and it's massively important. It's fundamental. I mean, we're digital publishers in the true sense of the word. We can't take that consumer attention for granted. Just because we have a lot of attention, that's a two-way exchange. And ideally, we want to bring our brand partners into that value with attention. In other words, the way we talk about it internally is we talk to people 3 to 5 times a month, 3 to 5 minutes of their life. So 15, 20 minutes uninterrupted attention every month. That's a high responsibility on our side to give the consumer something of value. Now, it's not a one-to-one curated Instagram feed per se, but I arguably have a lot more attention maybe than in the 300 feet of scrolling. But we start with the same consumer insights that plan media campaigns. We look at what our audience does, what they listen to, what they watch, how they behave, and then we program the show nationally every day, but it can be customized very hyper local. So the Hamptons, classically anyway, the Hamptons in January, let's say, looks pretty different than it does in July. Areas in lake and beach towns throughout the summer that triple, quadruple in population. You can buy that like spot TV almost really locally with us, whereas nationally you may want to run a big product announcement, and we see it when it shows up in content with the right context and the right moment. Anytime we run esports content, we wake up the next day to lots of tweets and lots of social mentions about, I saw Ninja, I saw Fortnite, I saw whatever. Food content, our audience eats a lot. The three, little fun fact to win you a bar bet, I guess, when we all get back to bars, but the three biggest consumer journeys after you fuel up are grocery, big box, and QSR. Our audience eats a lot, so food content makes sense. Music and driving go hand in hand, so that makes sense. And we try to balance the national and local flavor of that alongside our brand and our content partners. Then we've got an in-house content studio that produces or customizes things as well. So we look at ourselves as a digital publisher in the real sense of the word, and using that consumer attention to provide some entertainment, some value is mission critical, I think, for not just these networks to succeed, but to bring all the value that they should be bringing to brands and agencies. And that's most of what our brand partners say to us is, you're supposed to be the subject matter experts in your audience and your platform. You need to help us understand how to use this context. And in that sense, the consumer definition of premium has changed. It's not just things on the living room wall that you sit there for 3 hours. There's premium content that you consume in 6 or 8 second bites. So for networks like this, where it's much more short form content, I think we have a whole generation of consumers who are now trained to look at content that way and don't make these big distinctions around sort of where it's viewed in the way maybe classically marketers still do. If everyone's still racing to dominate the living room screen, then we've missed the opportunity. And that's certainly not what you're hearing from the leading marketers out there, Mike's agency and many others like that.
And I think also that some of the recent Harris poll data that the OAAA put out, talking about how, people are having some of this kind of pure play digital fatigue, and they're, out and about looking up, understanding their environments. And, that's going to mean that, whether it's a 6-second piece of content or something produced for that, kind of consumer journey, it's, people are going to take notice. And then when you kind of combine Tal's point of view around making sure that the plumbing works, which, in a lot of the video out of home companies, have that now starting to, be highly adaptable, then that convergence starts to happen. And then, the Mike on your side, and, agencies and brands are starting to, really be able to activate this and look at this as an equal part of the mix. So really exciting to see how it all comes together. So beyond the programming of content, video out of home affords creativity that goes beyond what we were just talking about, that TV screen or that mobile device. 2 examples come to mind for me. The first is a campaign for Stuart Weitzman featuring Kendall Jenner and Lil Buck that was shot specifically with Link NYC screens in mind at the creative phase. And they were actually playing tug of war on 2 sides of the street. And, it just shows the power of programming creatively. And then the second one was a campaign that we worked with Mike and the team at 360i for American Eagle, featuring Addison Rae. And actually, that was an example of the exact creative from their video and TV campaigns on the streets of New York with video out of home to reach an adult 18 to 25 audience. So, I just think creatively, whether it's the creative side or porting over existing assets, there's a lot that can really happen. Would love to hear Sean, Tal, Mike, other examples of creative video out of home campaigns that have really pushed the boundary.
I'll just say something very quick. When we started Innovate, we had a statement that we really need to reward attention versus demand it, and I feel like this is the digital out of home is exactly maybe the epicenter of that, because there's many things that I can pull up my phone and not pay attention, but if you are bringing something that you have the opportunity, the tag of war, the Stuart Weitzman example that you mentioned earlier is such a great example, is that if you do something cool and amazing, obviously I'm not only remembering, I'm gonna tweet, I'm gonna take a picture. There's a kind of the difference between a basic use and an amazing use is so wide in digital out of home. So that's I'll just say that.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Great point. Any creative innovations, Sean?
I'm going to steal that line about rewarding attention versus demanding it. I mean, I think for us, we do what we're hearing from marketers, first of all, like I think about Rocket Mortgage, a big partner of ours, like Casey Herbis, their CMO, talked about shooting their Super Bowl ad this year, and they had a half dozen different cameras going. So in real time, when they shot that campaign, they knew it was going to get used across all sorts of different social platforms, vertical, horizontal, sound, no sound, et cetera. So in a production sense, I think marketers are thinking more like that. And the nice thing with us, I guess, in the way we sort of customize our show, I don't have any must-carry rules. I'm not a handful of ad messages spammed in between long-form content. So we can, a 6, a 15, a 30, a 60, we've had takeovers. We can do a lot of different things. One of the fun ones was last year we did a Super Bowl ad with Moon Pie, one of America's favorite, pick up on the go snacks. The Tombras group out of Tennessee, Dooley Tombras, Jeff Benjamin, and they and their team are Lion winning, Clio winning folks. And Moon Pie has a very irreverent social personality. If you don't follow Moon Pie on Twitter, give it a shout. But they've had this running joke the last couple of years that they couldn't afford a Super Bowl spot. And if they did, here's what they would have done. So we said, let's bring that to life. So we ran a Moon Pie takeover in the whole country for Super Bowl Sunday for the big game. And great success online, great success with the brand, great success from a visibility standpoint with their key retail channels, et cetera, and just a really fun way to sort of turn our platform on its head. I'm not naive. No one's going to tune into GSTV to watch the Super Bowl or maybe Shonda Rhimes' next show. But back to that attention that we have, we deserve sort of a fun exchange. And this entire digital ecosystem, social KPIs and so on, that's sprung up around measuring everything out of home, whether it's classic out of home, digital out of home, video out of home. That's one of the things we've seen. It can be a very priming or amplifying effect. So we do a lot of other stuff day to day with many brands doing. We actually do creative testing with some to see A and B, which one drives better sales results. But I think it's a place where the same way you think about creative and other digital platforms, you can just include video out of home. It's not a custom, bespoke, something different, maybe like it once was, with the ease of video production and video assets.
So let's talk about the outcomes that you had mentioned, Sean. So, whether video out of home is bought direct, programmatically, it can create those and deliver those same business outcomes. And, given that media is all about driving outcomes that we talked about to the right audience, how important is that, Mike, from that perspective, whether it's, driving a incremental lift to a physical location or driving to a website, it has that started to kind of resonate that video out of home and obviously out of home more broadly can really do this in the same way as other channels.
I think it has. I mean, I think that we're on this transformational journey about what defines an outcome. I mean, for so long, we considered an outcome just to be an additional impression, right? That was the definition of success, was we got a lower CPM. I think that the modeling that's happening today is getting more respectful of the full journey, and that it's not just, last click attribution. You have to think about the power of the branding message to get that person engaged, to get them to start thinking about it. And because messaging is becoming so much more relevant, and the speed to retail, the speed to connection is so much closer because of what we carry in our hands, I think that any screen can be equally powerful. It used to be, if you saw the ad at the gas station, you'd have to remember it, come home, next time you went shopping. Now obviously you can just walk 20 feet to the convenience store that's probably attached, but you can also go on your phone. You can take action right there. You can do so much more. So I think that, outcomes are really critical for buyers and agencies to prove the value of a screen. But I think it's coming full circle, and we're seeing that value come to life in places we never saw it before.
Great. Well, we are almost out of time, so I wanted to wrap up with this. So Sean, Tal, Mike, one piece of advice for you to share with marketers and agency partners who are listening and tuning in, who are considering allocating a portion of their budgets to video out of home. What's one piece of advice you'd give them real quick? Sean?
For me, I would say drop the 100-year definition of out of home. and think about digital video and try to understand where does this align. And I think you'll be surprised at how much symmetry there is and therefore how much opportunity there is.
Great, great. Hal?
I would think, following on Sean, is balance the two sides. One, think that this is digital and should be fully connected. And on the flip side, from creative standpoint and storytelling, understand what are the value and what are the different mindset that the viewer would be in.
Perfect. Great. Mike?
I would say work with the platforms. I mean, I think the platforms know their technology, their space, their audiences the best. So if you want to create the best user experience, work with those platforms to create your consumer-facing messaging.
Great, great. And I would end also or add that, don't dismiss the notion of extending those video campaigns just because it hasn't been done before. When you think about, Mike, what you said around audiences and outcomes and, there's untapped opportunity right in front of us in public view, literally. So with that, Sean, Tal, Mike, thank you so much. And I think we all could have talked a lot more with this, and I'm excited to continue the conversation in the industry and through the buyer's guide. So thanks, everyone. Great to see you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.